Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the first Adeva Insight session for this year. Today we have Marina with us. She will be talking about what's wrong with manual testing. Very catchy topic. Let's see what she has to say about it. So she's been in the industry for a while now. She has been working with different companies. She probably got some insights about what's wrong with manual testing. So I'm eager to hear about what she has to say. Marina?
Thank you, Kata, for inviting me to talk about this kind of like catchy and sensitive topic in the QA world. We'll see what's wrong or not at the end of this presentation. I wanted to share some insights, what I've learned from my career. I wanted to share my experience with you and what I think about this manual testing or automation testing, the other one. So let's dive in. So I've been a QA engineer for most of my career. I mean, that's the core thing that I do, the thing that I love to do. I've been a manual QA engineer. And so I started as a business analyst, which I think sort of gave me kind of like one basic knowledge of the software industry and creation of a software and how that process goes. And I started finding a lot of issues with the software as I was creating those documentation and functional requirements and everything. So I started working as a junior software tester. And the only thing that I knew back then was that verify and validate are kind of important words. So that was it, nothing else. And then I started learning a lot about testing. And next thing you'll see here that it's a new title as a support center team lead. So I was the only one in the company that actually knew how the entire system worked. So the logical thing for my managers was to put me in charge of the support team. And I didn't like that. So I quit that job after a month. But that gave me another perspective of another idea about this whole software lifecycle and getting feedback from customers, getting all those complaints and issues that they've been having. So a completely different perspective. Then I started I got a job as a manual QA engineer, which was the first experience with a proper like testing team. And I started learning about reporting issues and writing test cases, writing test plans, and also how to report those short and sweet bugs, which we all love. And then I started like experimenting. I had this idea that if I wanted to improve in my career, in the QA career, I had to learn how to code, which was not that, I don't know how to explain, not that correct, but we'll see. And then I went back to the basics. I started a career as a business analyst and a QA engineer. So went back to what I started doing in the beginning. But now I'm working as a senior QA engineer, and most of the time I'm basically experimenting with a lot of new tools. And I cannot be happier that I'm in this position right now, where I actually get to learn more about what it is to be a manual QA engineer, which does a lot of automation. So in this presentation, this webinar, I will cover these two topics that are the center of this presentation, the manual and automated testing, and what I think those are, how did I become a QA engineer? What are the best practices that I'm using today? Some insights and some tips that I have to share with you. And I want to cover what companies really need from us as QAs. And also I will talk about top 5 activities that I think can help you improve your testing skills. So let's dive in. Okay, so manual versus automated testing, my favorite topic to talk about. I recently came across this great webinar and great article that was that had a discussion between Michael Bolton. I'm not sure how many of you have heard that name. He is sort of this QA guru working 30 plus years in the industry. And he's been talking with James Back about how we can kind of remove this vocabulary from the whole testing industry. So how do we explain to the people in the industry without mentioning this manual or automated testing vocabulary? So they talk about different styles and different tools that they use during testing process. They kind of wanna merge the entire manual and automation testing process as this one whole thing, which is an inevitable process, which is called testing, just testing, not manual, not automation, nothing like that. So they compare manual and automation, which we all know. They wanted to explain manual as this attended way of testing. So people are intentionally operating with the product, and humans interact with the software. Whereas unattended, which is a machinery that is kind of pre-programmed, carrying out these activities, which cannot interpret on its own. Next, we have this sort of experiential way of testing, which is when you say manual, you sort of experience the software by yourself as a human being, as a QA. You get to treat the product as if a user would. So you can kind of experience the whole like human interaction with the software. Where on the other hand, we have this instrumented, which is encountering the product by scripts or tools or other schemas without human involvement at all. Next, we have this sort of exploratory, which is self-explanatory. These two parts are, one is exploratory, one is scripted. The exploratory is something that is very kind of very dear to me. I practice it every day, and I think it's giving you this control to be very creative with the software, to experiment in the moment. Like it's not something that it's pre-scripted. So you run this script, and then you have this expected result, which is that. But exploratory is something that gives you control over the platform, and you sort of find the weirdest bugs at that time. So they also mentioned that manual is sort of this speculative way of testing process. So as a human, you are asking a question, you're wondering if something is possible, and you pursue that line of inquiry. So opposed to this demonstrative, where you have a specific thing that you're trying to show, and you see exactly what you expect, whether it fails or not. So other thing that we have to cover is that humans are responsible for their actions. You cannot Machines cannot take responsibility in any way. Like, so if you do something wrong, you cannot sue a machine in a court of law for breach of contract. You sue the person that sold you that machine, or you blame yourself. So machines cannot take the responsibility as a human would. Next thing is something that is very dear to me, and I look forward every day. This so-called manual process of testing is a growing process. It's something that changes you in some sense. So, as it says on this slide, the tester's mind, body, and social relationships are developing through the activity of testing. So even social relationships, for example, I'm sure if you work in the QA industry or the software industry, you've encountered that it doesn't happen on my machine. So it's a very usual thing to say when you're working on a software. And just the act of being a human involved in a process changes you. So you may be changed for the worst, but part of the art of software testing is to be changed for the better by the experiences we have. So we're testing a product to present something better to the audiences, to the users. So other thing that they mention is this non-coder and coder. So there are people that like to code and people that don't like to code. But that doesn't necessarily mean that one is a manual QA and one is automation QA, which is totally a different thing. For example, I am a manual QA myself, but I like to code. And I do code on a daily basis. I create automation scripts, but I consider myself still till this day as a manual tester, not automation tester. Maybe some of you will think that's weird, but it's my perspective. So these are kind of the things I wanted to share with you, and something to think about instead of presenting this whole idea of software testing as a separation between manual and automation, something that is coded and non-coded, to kind of think of different ways of approaching this topic. So I'm going to share some insights about how I became a QA and what helped me in the process to become better. I love this quote. It's again from Michael Bolton. Testing is a university where the program lasts your whole career. It's not something that is taught in school. It's not something that you can learn in a course. Yes, of course, you can learn the methodologies. You can learn the phrases, the sayings. Like, you can learn a lot of things, but the experience, the way you get better is by having tested so many tools and having experienced a lot of interactions with software. So you get creative every day as your career goes by. So what makes you a great tester, I think, is how you tell the testing story, which is, so this testing story has sort of these three sides to it. So one story is about the product and its status. So what the product does, what it doesn't do, how it works, how it doesn't work. The other side is how you tested the product. So how you set it up, how you operated it. It's not always like there are human errors in human interaction. So it's very important to know how you're going to test this product. And then the last, there is the quality of testing. So this is very important, very tricky. So this says, what have you done in the current circumstance? Like, what actions did you took with the limited time that you had? Not always we have a lot of time for testing. So that's very important things to know and to recognize when you're evaluating yourself as a tester. So what personally helped me is probably these three main things. The first one would be understanding the entire software development lifecycle. So how I think that you should learn the software development lifecycle is when you build an app yourself. So, and I mean it like build it from the beginning till the end. So the best way to do this is to think of an idea, write down the requirements in every single detail possible, like write down the workflow diagrams, write down the functionalities, everything, like create a mini project for yourself. And then build the app or find someone else to build it or build it yourself without any coding, which I love to talk about, but maybe in different webinar. So it is very important to work yourself, like to work yourself on a project. It's not being part of the team, but creating something of your own, creating the software yourself. And then you get to test the app, which is part of our job. But at the end, you have to publish it and get that feedback, hear what the customer has to say. Maybe you've done a lot of things wrong. I'm sure everybody does a lot of things wrong while creating an app. But it's very important to get insights from every single step of the process. Until you get that, you will have no idea what's going on, for example, in development, in the business part of the whole software lifecycle, or the feedback part, which is interaction with the customer. So I highly, highly recommend for everybody that wants to start a career or is during this part, or maybe you have done software, I highly recommend you create something of your own. And the next is passion for technology, which this slide is kind of empty. I had no idea how to explain the passion for technology. Is something that drives me every day to be better and get better. The only tip I can give you here is to subscribe to as many newsletters as you can that will give you insights about new tools and new technologies. I can recommend you some like Product Hunt Weekly, which will give you insights about new tools that appear every day on the market. Too Long Didn't Read, which is a newsletter, TLDR, which is a newsletter about hot topics in the tech world. And of course, Adeva Insights, which is an amazing, amazing newsletter about technology and our way of working, the remote and the remote way and stuff like that. So I highly recommend you subscribe to a couple of newsletters. And of course, these are old tools. Maybe some of them are new. That's why I wrote like new old tools. It's something that it's a must for you to become better at your job. For example, Jira, Trello, Asana, every project management tool that you can think of, they are basically kind of similar. They all do the same job, creating tickets, tracking down the progress. Is something that I recommend you learn. Also, there's TestRail, which is this tool for tracking test cases and test plans. It's a very, very good way of tracking your testing progress. It's a good way of organizing the testing process. But also, you can do that in a Google Drive sheets. Like, it doesn't have to be this fancy paid tool. It can be a simple sheet where you can have checklists, you can have test cases, you can basically create your own test trail in Google Drive. And next thing is kind of important and very simple. It's a note-taking tool, which I use practically every hour of the day. So what I like to do as a QA is, while there is a meeting about new functionalities, new features. What I like to do is take notes for myself. So I usually, while the business analyst is presenting these new features, I'm creating all of the negative test scenarios in my head. Not the positive ones, not what they're presenting, but the negative ones. Whatever I can think of, okay, this might be wrong with the thing. I'm going to write it down. This may cause issues for the user. I'm going to write it down. So that helps me later on create a better test plan, a better test cases. So any kind of note-taking tool will do its job. And next is the Selenium IDE, which is sort of like a no-code tool for automation testing. So for automating the tasks. And I cannot thank enough to the people that invented the Selenium IDE tool, because I use it every day. I'm currently working on this project where I have to complete around 15 pages of forms with more than 100 fields that are not optional at all to create just one user. And I have to create 20 to 30 users every day because I have this huge part of the application that it's not the creation of the user. So imagine a tool that is going to click for me. Beautiful. So Selenium IDE is basically that. It's my junior tester. And next thing I want to share with you, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this one because it's pretty new to the market. It's called Otify. And I got a chance to speak with the CEO of this startup, and they created something really cool, which kind of solves the biggest issue when it comes to automating the test scripts. They've created a no-code test automation. So basically, you go inside the tool, and instead of writing the test scripts with a code, you click on the buttons. But the important thing is they use this AI that will maintain the script if the UI changes. So if the UI changes, if a button, for example, is missing, or if the button moves the location, the AI detects that and notifies you and says, okay, you have this button was here, now it's here. Is it the same button? Which is kind of very cool because I do like to code, as I said, but I don't really have time when it comes to writing test scripts. Not all the time. So this is something that can really help you. But again, this is an expensive tool. Not every company has the resources to pay for it. That's why I recommend the Selenium IDE, which is, there's some insights about how it clicks for me. You run the script, you write the script very easily. You can also record like clicking on the screen. You do need to learn a little bit about creating an XPath, and you do need to collaborate with your developers if they're kind enough to create IDs for the buttons that you're going to click. And that's it. It's pretty easy to learn. I highly recommend you try it out. And something that we all should do, have fun and experiment, which I have this story to share with you. It's about my first experience as a QA. I had to test this OBD port. It's called OBD port. It goes inside your computer of your car. So you plug it in, and then it sends signals to our app, whether you're a good driver or a bad driver, which was kind of very, very, very tricky to test. And we did push with the API it got through, and everything was working fine, everything was working, but I was like, okay, but that's not how you can grade someone. We were giving this device to student drivers, and we graded them based on their driving behaviors. So if they made a sharp turn, the app would send a notification to their dad. Or if they drive really fast, the app will again send a notification to their dads and moms. But how I tested this was I plugged the device in my car and I went to the emptiest parking lot in our city and just drove like crazy. Nobody wanted to drive with me after that. The developers came with me in the car to experiment with this, but they never wanted to go inside and drive with me again. So, what companies really need? As I said, the use of resources and something to really think about. The companies really do have limited resources, and us as QAs need to find the most efficient way to use those resources. It's not always hire an expensive automation tester in the process or pay the most expensive tool. So sometimes you have to use this so-called manual process and use tools such as Selenium ID, which is free, and it's going to do the job efficiently. And that's where you kind of optimize the entire process. So what companies, from my experience, want from us is to be ready, to be prepared with as much as testing documentation as possible. So even if you don't have the time, even if you have very limited time, make sure you prepare a checklist with the most critical areas from the software. So you will definitely have to talk with your product owners or someone that is interacting with the customer and knows what those critical area is. So definitely have at least a checklist, like stuff you have to check before every single release. So you do that sanity testing. But it's very good to be always prepared with test plan. So what is your end goal? What do you expect from the software to do after you're finished with all of the testing? And yeah, like be creative, like always be creative. That's what I say to most of my colleagues in this industry, is to be as much as creative as possible. Like this job is not something that you can like automatically do as a script. It's something that gives you this creativity to experiment with the tools, to walk inside the customer's shoes, which is sort of this way for us to be creative. And the last thing I think is, these are top 5 activities that I think can help you, really help you in this whole process and can help you with your testing skills. The first one is to have a critical path checklist ready. So that's the checklist that I was talking about. It really helped me. I use a Google spreadsheet to create this checklist. I literally have verify if this is ready, check. Before we do that, before every single release, it's something that you can do in 15-20 minutes, depends on the length of the software. Automate boring and repetitive tasks, such as the creation of the user. For myself, that's something that manually takes 20 minutes to do. And with the script that I wrote, it takes 2 to 3 minutes max. So I highly recommend you invest in something, in learning something like Selenium ID, which is not that difficult. Anyone can do it. And document important notes and goals. So what I discussed with you about during a meeting where they're presenting a new feature or they're discussing, brainstorming about something, just have a notepad with you and just write down everything that comes in your mind about all the possible things that could go wrong with the tool. Use a tool for test cases organization. such as TestRail or the Google Drive sheets or Google Drive documents, anything that helps you, anything that will be clear and very nicely done, that anyone can understand, and create an app from scratch, which is kind of I think the best advice that I can give you. It helped me a lot. I've created several apps in the past, and definitely helped me understand all of my colleagues, the entire process, and everything that I know today. So, what's wrong with manual testing? Well, I personally would say nothing. I do manual testing every day. What I think is wrong that we do as people in this industry is separating engineers as manual and automation engineers and giving value according to whether they're capable of coding or not is something that we should stop doing. We need to realize that product quality takes a lot more than just bringing automation to the process. That's my insight. And for the last, I've been called Q&A for so many years and so many times in my career. So I think it's best to end this with a Q&A slide.
That was funny. Okay, so do we have any questions? You can put, oh yes, we have one already.
Hey.
Any thoughts on device farms? Is it worth using AWS device farm for testing mobile apps before going live?
Yes. So I actually was using the Microsoft device farm for testing a mobile app. It sure can help because you will never have the resources to test a mobile application on all possible devices in the world. So there is a way to automate that process and kind of go through every screen and see if everything fits properly on every single device, if anything is broken or not. So definitely recommend that. So yeah.
Maybe you can also do a quick summary of what a device farm is for people who are not familiar with that.
Oh, so it's a cloud, like Amazon Web Services has that, and Microsoft has that. I've used the Xamarin UI test framework to test on a farm like that. But I can share after this presentation. I can find out more and share with you once we publish this to YouTube.
Sure. There is a question. Can you repeat the links for the tools for QA? I'm not sure if you mentioned, Selenium or such.
Autify,
you mentioned any
stuff
other
like that?
tool?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Maybe you can go back to that slide.
Yeah.
I just remember the list of
This
newsletters that you took. Yes, I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can keep this here in case someone wants to take a note. And how often from the same person, JMeter? Yes, is used.
I still haven't used. I don't know. I mean, I'm not experienced with JMeter. I know it's used for performance testing, but I haven't done anything. Luckily, I've been a part of QA teams that has dedicated QA just for that. So I have to get back to you on that, study a little bit more.
This is a good one. What is the golden rule for identifying manual QA processes that need to be automated?
Oh, something that takes a lot of time and effort to do manually is great if you can automate those tasks. So something that really is a simple thing like creation of a user that takes 20 minutes to do, and you have to do it like every single day for a couple of times, more than 10 times, definitely find a way to automate that.
And probably that it's the same every time you do it.
And it's the same every time you do it, yes.
How good manual testing skills should people that work with automation testing have? Is that one of the reasons why automation testing sometimes fails?
Oh,
You need to have good skills for, let's say, planning the tests and everything before you automate.
Yes. So you cannot have a good automation process, automation tasks, automate the task without a good manual process. So that's why I kept saying, like, be creative and with your test cases and think of different scenarios, because later on, if you have someone that is dedicated to automate that process, it's going to look from the manually created test cases. So I've worked in a team where I would have to write all of the test scenarios, negative, positive, everything that I could think of. So later on, an automation QA could write down just the scripts based on those scenarios. Oh, the links for the newsletters. I don't have the links on the slides, but I can share with you
afterwards.
Yes.
Okay, this is a bit complex for me, but I will try to pass it along as good as possible. I think it's about automation more than it is about manual testing. So how do you feel about flipping the testing pyramid? The traditional hierarchy goes from unit testing, integration, and then E2E on top.
Okay.
But Gleb Bakhmutov
from Cyprus thinks that E2E testing shall take in charge the future.
So it should probably be first.
It will prevail in the end. Maybe it's good to have the automation, like unit tests in the beginning. I mean, of course, like unit tests can help you find all of those bugs, wrong things with the functions that you have inside the code. It's good to have that in the beginning. It definitely saves you a lot of time as a manual QA to find simple bugs, missing pieces from the code. So maybe.
Okay, this one is, what are some tips on testing long and complex forms? Have you used any tools and technologies that can pre-fill these forms for you? This was the exact example that you gave.
Yes. So Selenium IDE, beautiful for long forms, bunch of fields that needs completion, stuff like that.
So how do you do it in practice? Like, do you enter what are the emails that it should use for creating all of the users, because they need to be unique, right?
Yes. I have this script called variables where I change only one place, and then later on in the other scripts it's used. So
and everything else is the same.
Yeah.
Interesting. Even for me, it's interesting. Catalan Studio, have you used that? What do you think about it?
I tried it once. It's something similar to Autify. I haven't used it on a daily basis, but I did try it. I receive emails every day from them, a lot of emails, but I didn't get a chance to introduce to my company. And but it is something that it's kind of this no-code tool. But again, Selenium IDE free does the job. Beautiful. Everyone in my team uses the scripts that I wrote, like developers, business analysts, everybody.
How far have the industry went in terms of implementing AI in QA?
Well, Autify does a really good job. Those guys are from Japan. Their target markets are not, I think, US or anything besides Asia, but I found them on Product Hunt. I decided to contact them because it looked very interesting using AI to detect all of these pain points with automation testing. And I'm like, okay, cool. It is work. It does work. How many testing environments are there in the process of testing? Oh, this depends. I think the minimum should be 2 for me. Like one is development QA, wherever you publish new things and test and break stuff. And the other one, maybe 3 actually. One should be staging, where you go pre-publish just the pieces of code that actually work, that have been tested. You test them again, and something that is very similar to live environment. And then staging goes to live, and those become the same. But yeah, 3. And also maybe another one, which is a local environment for the developers to experiment with their code.
Can you recommend a bug tracking tool?
Jira. I think it's I know a lot of people don't like it, especially when they introduce that new interface, which is very confusing. But it is the most powerful tool, the oldest tool in the industry. I think they're doing the best job. But also like Trello is something that is good for small teams, for something that doesn't have a lot of tickets.
I think what's important here is to use the same that you use for managing the whole project, right? So you have everything in one place.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, why Selenium WebDriver, Maven, and TestNG is left out from this test automation presentation?
Okay, because it's not a test automation presentation. I'm so sorry, but I don't do a lot of automation testing, automation processes. I focus my career on doing things manually, and that's what I try to do every day.
So there is also one other question which is related, how you check assertions with Selenium IDE, but I'm guessing that, so the purpose of using automation here was to simplify your role as manual QA, right? So you're not doing assertion check or anything else.
Nope. Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Tips for a newbie QA. Where to begin? Where to focus on the beginning? I think it's very important for newbies to learn the software development lifecycle, the whole process, and then find a company that will invest in you, that will give you a trial period where you can develop yourself as a QA. I've been lucky enough to be part of such company. You can send me an email. I can send you some recommendations about local companies that do that. But the best thing you can do is kind of try to be a QA yourself. It's not something that can be taught in university. I know we have some very good courses here in Skopje about being a QA. I don't know what those are. I never attended any of those. I only did the ISTQB certification, which is kind of something that you can learn on your own. You don't need a course for that. You can read the documentation, and it's this agile way of testing. But I don't know, experience will make you a good QA.
And build an app, right?
Yes, build an app, definitely. You will learn a lot.
Yeah,
if
I think also.
Noob, then take a page you like and try to automate it. Yes, thank you, Jovan.
Okay, we are done with the question. If someone else wants to ask something, we will share your email, her email afterwards if you want to reach out. But I think you can also find her on Twitter or LinkedIn. So that might be
very active. Yes, very active on Twitter. So send me a message.
Great. Thank you, Marina, for the amazing presentation and the tips and the answers afterwards. And thanks everyone for joining us. This will go on YouTube in the next days, and we have another webinar coming up next month. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And another thing which I would like to exclusively pre-announce with you today is that at the beginning of next month, we are also holding a fireside chat with Mutz, the head of product and engineering at Imager, or Imgur, as most of us like to pronounce it. So stay tuned for that as well. We will be publishing more details about that as well soon. And yes, our website is there if you want to join us, or if you need to hire an excellent engineer or a designer. Thank you again, and
Thank you,
see you next month.